Welcome to reality. You're now on the Code of Mind channel. One simple question has the power to completely overturn your perception of everyday life. What if this notorious matrix is not sustained by remote servers, complex software code, or mythical system administrators supposedly controlling humanity? What if this entire colossal structure rests solely on your personal belief that the material world around you is real? One of the leading scientists at the University of California spent more than 20 years of his life on strict mathematical proofs of one shocking thesis. His final conclusion sounds like a death sentence for classical science. What you see with your own eyes around you right now is not objective reality. It is merely an interface, a regular, simplified desktop of your biological computer. When you work on a laptop, you see a beautiful round icon of a text file on the screen, but the icon itself is not the file. Inside the computer, there are no little blue squares. There is only silicon, transistors, microchips, and streams of electrical current rushing through them. The icon is a lie. It is a simulation created so that you do not lose your mind from the complexity of the processes occurring in the processor. Your brain does exactly the same thing, and if everything that surrounds you is just an illusory interface, it means this interface can, at the very least, be closed, rebuilt, or completely updated. Let's start with dry, verified scientific data, because real facts, unlike social manipulations, do not require blind faith from you. They simply require you to turn on sober logic. In 2019, the authoritative scientific journal PLOS One published the sensational results of the so-called Fröhlicher-Renner experiment. Physicists created a highly complex thought model, which they then confirmed in practice within quantum laboratories. The essence of the experiment came down to the following. Two independent observers measuring the exact same quantum microsystem obtain mathematically incompatible, contradictory results at the output. And at the same time, pay attention, both researchers are absolutely right. Both recorded the truth, but this truth turned out to be different for each of them. The conclusion officially documented by the physicists sounds revolutionary. An objective physical reality that is the same for everyone simply does not exist in our universe. This is no longer the speculation of esotericists or the philosophy of Buddhism. These are strict mathematical equations. This is published, peer-reviewed quantum physics. In parallel with this, Donald Hoffman, a world-renowned professor of cognitive sciences, developed a mathematical model called the interface theory of perception. His thesis, which passed rigorous academic peer review, states, "Everything we perceive as a three-dimensional reality, including space and time, is not a reflection of what actually exists. It is a rigid interface created by evolution for one sole purpose: to help our biological species survive and effectively pass on genes. Evolution was never interested in us seeing the truth. The truth overloads the brain too much. Evolution created an adaptive lie for us. Your brain is an opaque glass window through which you look at the real world. Your brain is a strictly limited browser, and this browser renders on the screen of your consciousness only those primitive icons for which your subconscious has a direct evolutionary demand." Now let's break down the specific technical mechanism. How exactly is this illusion created in your head every single second? Every moment, your nervous system receives a colossal, insane array of data from the surrounding world, about 11 million bits of information per second. But how much of this ocean is your brain capable of processing consciously? Physiologists give a precise answer: only about 40 bits per second, 11 million versus 40. Where does everything else go? It is ruthlessly weeded out, filtered, and simply not rendered in your consciousness. But who or what inside your head makes the final decision on which 40 bits to allow onto the screen and which millions of information streams to erase? The answer is simple: your deep-seated belief system. What you sincerely believe in on autopilot is what your brain renders in physical space. What your subconscious does not expect to see is literally blocked by the visual cortex and physically fails to enter your field of vision. This phenomenon in neurobiology is called selective attention. Remember the famous experiment by psychologist Christopher Chabris involving the invisible gorilla. A group of subjects was given a simple task: to watch a video carefully where people pass a basketball to each other and count the exact number of passes. In the middle of the video, right onto the court between the players, a person in a huge black gorilla suit walks out without rushing. He stops in the center, thumps his chest, and leaves. The result: more than half of the completely healthy people did not notice the gorilla at all. Upon being questioned by scientists, they sincerely answered that there was no gorilla in the video. This gorilla was absolutely real on the film, but for the brains of those who were focused on counting the ball, it physically did not exist. The brain simply cut this texture out of the frame as unnecessary. Do you understand what this actually means? The Matrix is not hiding some secret reality from you behind high walls. You yourself, through your own filters of attention, choose exactly which version of the world to render in your head every day, every minute, and every second. Remember, your belief in something is not just an abstract philosophical conviction. It is a direct, hard, technical command to render the surrounding space. And now for the most interesting and dangerous part. What happens to a person when they suddenly, at a deep level, stop believing in that gray, limited version of reality issued to them since childhood by society? This process is detailed and documented by official science, and there is not a drop of mysticism here. Back in 1955, the famous psychologist Solomon Asch conducted a series of classic experiments on conformity. A group of people was shown cards with lines of different lengths. The task was simply to say which lines were identical. All participants except one were in on the experiment and, on the scientist's command, deliberately gave an obviously stupid and incorrect answer. And what did the experiment show? The vast majority of regular subjects, seeing the truth with their own eyes, broke under the pressure of the majority opinion and agreed with the blatant lie of the crowd. They went against their own senses just to avoid standing out. But the most terrifying thing was discovered later, when this experiment was repeated using modern brain scanners. Scientists recorded the brain states of those rare subjects who found the strength to disagree with the crowd, one person against everyone. At the moment this rebel voiced their independent opinion, the instruments recorded a massive activation of the amygdala, the zone responsible for severe stress and physical pain. Our brain perceives disagreement with the generally accepted firmware as a real physical threat to survival. The Matrix is sustained solely by this fear of biological rejection and the pain of disagreement. Every time you begin to think differently, your body experiences pure neurobiological stress. The system created this protective mechanism intentionally, at the level of instincts, so that at the very first attempt of rebellion, you would get scared and obediently return back to the familiar, safe rendering of the common herd. The real exit from the Matrix is not a light, pleasant meditation to music or a beautiful esoteric epiphany. It is an extremely difficult, painful process of breaking old neural connections, and that is precisely why most people will never escape this trap. Not because they are stupid or do not see the phoniness around them, but because breaking your own settings is physically painful. So what actually happens to a person's physiology when their blind faith in the proposed template finally breaks down? Psychology and neuroscience document three distinct effects that are mistakenly taken for mysticism. The first effect: a complete restructuring of the perception of time. People who have experienced a radical collapse of their old worldview unanimously describe the exact same strange sensation. Time around them physically slows down. Why? Because the brain finally disconnects from the social autopilot of routine and restarts the mode of emergency data registration. The density of your life increases sharply. The second effect: hacking the filters of attention. Those very 11 million bits of information that your skull used to ruthlessly dump into the trash bin begin to partially penetrate your consciousness. You suddenly start to notice hidden patterns, incredible coincidences, strange rhymes of events and signs that you would have walked past with your eyes closed before. People call this magic or synchronicity. Physicists call it a simple change in the core parameters of your attention. You have simply started to see the gorilla that others do not notice. The third effect: a change in the sequence of events. Here, classical science throws its hands up for now, but the statistical data is stubborn. People who have radically rebuilt their internal architecture of beliefs describe an immediate, avalanche-like change in external circumstances. The old job, unnecessary people, situations dragging you down, all of this begins to rapidly fall away on its own, and entirely new opportunities come to take their place. A coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps your newly complicated request to the processor simply output an entirely different picture onto the screen. Remember, the matrix is not a concrete prison built around you by evil forces. The matrix is merely your internal factory settings by default, which you mistakenly consider to be your personality. And these settings can and must be changed. Professor Donald Hoffman mathematically proved we will never, under any circumstances, be able to see objective reality as it truly is using our 5 primitive senses. We are doomed to look at a simplified interface created for the banal survival of our body. But here is the main, deepest question that Professor Hoffman, for some reason, never asked in his works, but I will ask it. If everything around us is just a digital interface, a desktop on a screen, then who is the end user of this system? It is definitely not your biological brain, and it is definitely not your physical body, because the brain itself is merely a silicon processor processing impulses, and the body is just an input and output device, a keyboard and a monitor. So who is that invisible viewer looking through your eyes into this screen of reality right now? You are not the viewing program. You are not a character inside this game. You are that very observer who once launched this program into execution. And you are the only one who has the absolute legitimate right to close it, rewrite it, or globally update it. The Matrix holds power over you only for as long as you sincerely believe that you are just a gear inside this complex system. But the exact second you realize yourself as an external observer of this system, all the rules of the game change once and for all. And these are not metaphors from a sci-fi movie. This is pure quantum physics. Remember, the true observer is never located inside their own experiment. The observer is always on the outside, and it is precisely they who determine the final outcome of the entire experiment. Write right now in the comments at what exact moment in your life you first clearly felt that this world works completely differently from how your parents, school, and television explained it to you since childhood. What served as your first system glitch? Thank you for being with me on this channel. I wish you the best possible branch of reality. Subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Take care.